If you have been doing bicep curls since the day you started training, and your biceps still look small, flat, and unimpressive every time you flex in the mirror, then the next 5 minutes are going to tell you exactly why. Because the reason your biceps aren't growing has almost nothing to do with how many sets of curls you are doing per week, and everything to do with 4 specific errors that are collectively ensuring your bicep muscle receives the minimum possible growth stimulus on every single rep of every single set you have ever performed. The first and most important thing you need to understand is the anatomy of the bicep, because most people training their biceps don't actually know what the bicep does. And without that knowledge, every technique decision you make is essentially random. Your biceps brachii is a 2-headed muscle. The long head on the outer side of your arm, which is responsible for that peak when you flex, and the short head on the inner side, which contributes to overall thickness and width. And critically, the bicep has 2 functions that must both be trained for complete development. Elbow flexion, which is the curling motion everyone does, and supination, which is the rotation of your forearm so your palm faces the ceiling. And this supination function is almost universally undertrained because most people curl with a fixed grip and never consciously rotate their wrist throughout the movement, meaning they are training exactly half of what the bicep is designed to do, and then wondering why it only develops to half its potential. A study using EMG analysis, published in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research, confirmed that active supination during the curl, deliberately rotating the wrist from a neutral position at the bottom to a fully supinated palm-up position at the top, increased bicep activation by 28% compared to curling with a fixed supinated grip throughout, because the supination motion requires the bicep to produce force through its secondary function simultaneously with elbow flexion, recruiting a greater percentage of the total muscle fiber pool and creating more total mechanical tension across the full muscle belly. The second reason your biceps look small is the one I have already covered extensively in shoulder and chest training, but that applies here with equal force. You are not training your bicep at its lengthened position under load, and the research on stretch-mediated hypertrophy from 2021 through 2023 makes it absolutely clear that loading a muscle at its longest length produces dramatically greater hypertrophy than loading it at mid-range or shortened positions. And for the bicep, the lengthened position is at the very bottom of the curl, when your arm is fully extended and the bicep is stretched maximally from origin to insertion. Yet, the vast majority of people perform their curls with either a partial range of motion that never achieves full extension at the bottom, or they use so much momentum and so much weight that they swing past the bottom position so quickly that the lengthened position receives essentially 0 time under meaningful tension. The fix is to perform every curl with a complete 3-second eccentric lowering phase, reaching full extension at the bottom of every rep, pausing for 1 full second in that fully extended position to eliminate elastic energy and ensure the bicep must generate force from a dead stop in its maximally lengthened state, because that 1-second pause at the bottom of a strict curl with a weight light enough to actually achieve it will produce more bicep growth per rep than 10 sloppy heavy curls that never touch the lengthened position at all. The third reason is elbow position, and this is the biomechanical error that reduces bicep activation more than almost any other single technical flaw. When your elbows drift forward during a curl, which happens automatically when the weight is too heavy or when you are fatigued, your anterior deltoid takes over as a primary contributor to the movement because forward elbow position creates a shoulder flexion component that the front delt is designed to handle, and simultaneously it reduces the mechanical disadvantage of the bicep, allowing it to produce less force while the deltoid compensates. And an EMG study found that anterior elbow drift of even 2 to 3 inches reduced bicep activation by over 30% compared to keeping the elbows pinned firmly at the sides throughout the entire range of motion. 30% less bicep activation from a 2-inch elbow drift that happens so automatically, most people have never once noticed it is occurring. Pin your elbows at your sides using a wall, a preacher curl pad, or simply by consciously pressing them backward slightly throughout the movement. And if you cannot maintain elbow position at a given weight, then that weight is too heavy for strict bicep training and needs to be reduced, regardless of how it looks to people around you in the gym. The fourth reason your biceps look small is the most psychologically rooted of all, and it connects to a concept in behavioral neuroscience called the peak end rule, described by Daniel Kahneman, which states that humans evaluate experiences based on how they felt at the most intense moment and at the end rather than on the average across the entire experience. In bicep training, this manifests as a systematic overinvestment in the top of the curl, the peak contraction, because that is where the muscle feels most engaged and most impressive, and a systematic underinvestment in the bottom of the curl, where the muscle is lengthened and the position feels less dramatic and less satisfying, meaning your psychological experience of the curl is driving your attention and effort toward the least hypertrophically valuable portion of the movement and away from the most valuable one, and you have been doing this unconsciously on every set for as long as you have been training. The complete solution is to reduce your working weight by 20 to 30% from what you currently use, supinate your wrist actively throughout every rep from a neutral grip at the bottom to a fully palms up position at the top, pin your elbows to your sides for the entire set, take 3 full seconds to lower the weight to a complete full extension at the bottom, pause there for 1 second, and direct your conscious mental attention to feeling the stretch in the bicep at the bottom and the contraction at the top, rather than simply trying to move the weight from point A to point B, because your biceps are not small because they cannot grow. They are small because every training decision you have been making has been delivering the wrong stimulus to a muscle that will respond dramatically and visibly the moment you start giving it the right one.